Can you shoot cars at f0.95? Yes. Yes, you can. Whether or not you should actually do that is a completely different thing altogether. I did on a lot of documentary projects a while back, and I went into my archives to find some examples so that we can take a look. Hi, I'm David. I would consider myself a documentary filmmaker with a heavy bias in cars and automotive. And I'm a big fan of gear that really shouldn't work for the price point it's offered at. And this is a prime example of that. In 2017, I stumbled upon a lens that really shouldn't exist for the price point. I am talking about the Zhongyi Speedmaster 50mm f0.95, which is in and of itself the budget version of the budget version of the Leica Noc Deluxe 50mm f0.95. I'm talking less than $1,000 for a lens that in the original form costs $11,000. Now, every sensible person would walk away from this, and I instead went out to buy one. When you hold it in your hand, wait, I have it here. This is it. It's a big hunk of metal that when you mount it feels both weird and incredibly fragile at the same time. Like it's weird. I've used it so much, it's broken. It has a completely broken aperture. If you mount this lens, you really are going for that look. You're going for that 0.95 because there's no point in having that on and shooting at f2.8. So you're always wide open. You need ND as soon as the sun comes out even a little bit because it's so much light that you're constantly battling like the top limit of your shutter, and you're missing focus so much. Because the depth of field is so razor thin, even when I would be standing still and the car would be 5 to 10 meters, 30 feet-ish away from me, I would zoom in with the camera digitally on the viewfinder, nail the focus, take the shot, and it would still be out of focus. Like, that's the level of you're missing it. Additionally, because the lens is so poor optically, you're also never really in focus anyway. Back in the early days, I was shooting that on 12 megapixels, which was fine-ish, but I made the step to an A7R II at some point, and pairing a lens this inferior optically with a 40-something megapixel sensor is just completely stupid. Practically, there is no real reason to shooting this lens or shooting this wide open, even like f1.4, 1.8. You don't really ever need that. But if you go this crazy shallow, it's an incredible, distinct look. It's kind of brute forcing a visual aesthetic onto something. It feels like you're photographing toys, but in the real world. That's kind of how almost every time you put an entire car into the frame, the way the background blurs away, it feels unnatural. And I think that's one of the biggest draws that I had to the lens when I first got it, and what kept me using it for so long, despite it being optically so compromised. I just really enjoyed that look that you cannot really get any other way. And once you start to factor in film, like motion picture into that, it becomes even more surreal. Back when I used to shoot a lot of original films for Petrolicious, I'd use that lens wide open on a slider. And when you have that aesthetic of the photograph transferring into a motion picture, it creates even more of a look that doesn't compare. That was also something that kept me using it for so long, but ultimately what wore me out on it. You see, probably the largest drawback of the lens is it's so distinct. Apart from the optical quality and the fact that there's no real need to use it, it's a stylized device. And you cannot ever remove it, so it's really a specialty thing that after a certain while you just grow tired of it. It's crazy to see what it can do and how you can implement it. But for me, it made no real sense after a certain point. And especially the lack of autofocus means you really have to know why you carried this 1 kilogram behemoth of glass with you that is not weather sealed at all. Should you go out and buy one? Probably not. Or probably yes. I don't know. I was crazy interested when I first saw this, and it didn't keep me from buying it, and it didn't keep me from using it. And I don't think many people have shot as many old cars on that crazy of an aperture as I have. And I would definitely not do that in a commercial project again. Screw that. I definitely would do it again. Anyway, cheers.